I went to the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting this year in Omaha and wanted to recap my experience from that weekend and kind of what the weekend looked like and some of the key lessons and themes that I noticed while I was there. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting is not just an annual meeting for shareholders. It's really more of a large value investing convention that takes place over multiple days, not just the Saturday when the meeting is held. And thousands of people come in from all around the world with varying backgrounds and many different perspectives, so it's a very unique event in that sense, at least when we're talking about the world of investing. Now, a lot of the events tied to the weekend actually get started on Thursday. Now, I didn't go on Thursday of this year. I instead flew in on Friday. And one thing I will say is that traveling to Omaha can be pretty challenging, partly because it's in the middle of the country. It's not an international airport, so it can be pretty difficult to actually get to Omaha in the first place, especially if you're coming from out of the country. So definitely be careful when you're planning your travel and try to figure out what that's really going to look like sooner rather than later. And flight and hotel prices definitely skyrocket as you get closer to the event, so I would definitely recommend booking sooner rather than later. Now, I mentioned I arrived in Omaha on Friday, but that was not without a few hiccups before that, because I actually ended up missing my first flight because I started going to the wrong airport and didn't realize it until it was already too late. So I ended up going from one airport to the other airport, and then I had to go back to the first airport because that airport had the only flight out of Houston that was going to get me to Omaha in time for the punch card meetup, and I definitely did not want to miss that. So I was scrambling that whole morning. I ended up spending like $100 on Ubers because I had to go back and forth and was changing routes and everything. But I guess it wasn't a total disaster because I did make it to Omaha in time, and I got my first flight that I missed refunded because I booked it with points. So that was good. It was just highly unnecessary, and for next time, I'll make sure not to subconsciously put in the incorrect airport when I request an Uber. Anyways, I made it to the replacement flight on time, and I ended up sitting next to someone who recognized me because he had seen Punch Card before, so that was pretty cool. Shout out to my man Alejandro. And the plane was totally full of basically all Berkshire people because I don't know how many people are going from Houston to Omaha in the middle of the day on a Friday, but it seemed like quite a few were actually connecting from other airports from around the country and around the world. Shortly after that flight landed in Omaha, I went over to my hotel, got changed, and I headed over to the Punch Card Investing Meetup, which was a really cool event. We had nearly 40 people show up. I didn't get an exact count, but I'm guessing right around there. It was definitely over 30, and we had close to 40 people RSVP. But then some people brought extra people that they had met that day or the day prior, so it was really nice to get a real community event for the first time in punch card investing's history. But not only was the turnout really great, but it seemed like everyone was having a good time, and I definitely had some great conversations that came out of it and met a lot of interesting people, again, from all over the world, from many different walks of life and at varying stages in their investing, business, and just whatever careers. Now, this year I was the only member of the punch card investing team to attend the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting and this event in turn, but next year we expect to have some more of the members, if not everyone, if we can get things to line up well. But either way, I was really happy with how the event came together. And that was pretty much it for Friday. I went back to the hotel. By then it was actually pretty late considering I had to get up nice and early to get in line to get into the meeting in the next morning. And on Saturday morning, which is the day of the actual Berkshire Hathaway meeting, rather than wait for an Uber, I decided to walk from the hotel to the convention center where the meeting is held. And it was an okay walk. Thankfully it wasn't raining, so it actually felt pretty nice out. But the line to get into the convention center was pretty wild. They start letting people in at 7, and I got there probably around 7:15 is when I made it to the line. And by then the line was already going way outside of the stadium, and more people continued to pour in. I know a lot of people camp out well before the opening time of 7 a.m., but I wasn't trying to do that. And the line actually moved pretty quickly, all things considered. I was probably in line for 25 to 30 minutes before I got to the actual gate where they let everyone in. And once inside, I browsed around what's effectively a showroom for many of the Berkshire Hathaway brands that they own, including Pampered Chef, Dairy Queen, and many others. They even had an exhibit for a NetJets cabin that you could walk through to check out the interior, which was kind of neat. I ended up picking up a book at the book stand that they had in the showroom before heading over to See's Candy because I couldn't leave empty-handed. And this was all before 8:30 a.m., which is when the meeting itself started. I sat next to my friend Patrick over with the Part-Time Investing YouTube channel. Go check out his channel if you haven't already. And he was with his previous day's Uber driver. His name is Justin, and Justin owns a home renovation company in Omaha. So we had some great conversations about business and investing generally. More on that in just a second. But the arena very quickly filled up, and there weren't very many open seats besides the very upper decks, and I was in one of those upper decks. They then started playing a video which was kind of a weird mix of advertisements for some of their brands, along with some skits that Warren and Charlie have done through the years. I won't go into too much detail there, but I guess they play a video before each one of these meetings, and it's not actually available to the public. At least that's what they said, I don't know. But after the video was done by about 9 a.m., they started the official annual meeting, read over some of the earnings details before diving into many hours of Q&A. You can check out the full Q&A video yourself if you're interested. It's all online. And I also did a video going over some of my highlights from that Q&A session shortly after I had seen it. I think I filmed it the day after, if not 2 days after. I'll link that above right now. The content of the Q&A aside, it was kind of amazing to see a 92 and a 99-year-old get up there and answer many different questions in many different areas for 5 to 6 hours total with only one break in the middle. That'd be hard for just about anyone to do. I'd say by the end of the Q&A session, probably about a third of the audience had left or at least wasn't paying attention to the Q&A session and might have been off doing other things in the arena since they still had all those shops that were open during that whole time, but most of the crowd was there for the whole time. After that was all over, Patrick, Justin, and I walked over to a nearby sports bar and just grabbed something quick to eat before we were trying to decide what to do next. But back to this Justin guy. Like I mentioned, he was from Omaha and he runs his own business in town, but I guess he does Uber on the side just to meet people, and he ended up meeting Patrick the day before. They got along and he ended up coming to the meeting on Saturday, and then he treated us really well during that Saturday. He was driving us around and he took us to a few spots around Omaha, including Warren Buffett's house, which was kind of a weird experience itself because Warren Buffett owns a relatively extremely modest house. I mean, it's a nice house, but it's not what you'd probably expect for someone worth as many billions as he is. And there were a couple of guards and many cameras around it at all times. But after that, we went to the official picnic that Berkshire put on after the meeting, and there were quite a few people there as well. It was a really nice day, and they had some live music going. They had plenty of food to eat as well, so it was a nice little picnic, except it was in the middle of a parking lot, or more like a courtyard, for the Nebraska Furniture Mart, which is an enormously massive store that's really multiple buildings all kind of combined into one. It's like a shopping mall, but all one store, so it's pretty amazing, and that's another Berkshire subsidiary. We weren't there for too long since we just kind of wanted to see what was up and what was going on at this picnic, and it was a nice event. But to cap off the night, Justin took us to what allegedly is Warren Buffett's favorite steakhouse, and that was pretty cool. He even came over to our table and said hi to us and let us take pictures with him, so that was really cool. And that was it for that day. I went back to my hotel shortly thereafter. Now on Sunday morning, I had to switch hotels, and I booked it that way because I wanted to get a better deal on a downtown hotel because a lot of those were completely booked solid, except for Sunday and Monday because a lot of people leave on Sunday. So I got a nice rate on the Sunday night, which would have been cheaper than the one I was currently at by the airport, which was still pretty inflated on Sunday for some reason. And I wanted to have a more aesthetically pleasing hotel room for filming a few videos for the channel. But later that morning, I went to the Markel brunch, which you could say is like a smaller version of Berkshire Hathaway. They're mainly an insurance company that holds other companies. And there were quite a few people at this event too. This was at the Marriott downtown, right next to the convention center pretty much, or at least right across the street from it. And I didn't stay at that meeting for too long because I kind of got pulled into the other room to have some conversations with more punch card viewers and people in that sort of value investing on YouTube community. And I stayed there for probably 3 hours after that. So I got to talk to a number of people, met some new ones, talked with some folks that I had met on the Friday at the punch card meetup. So a lot of good conversation there, and that was all great. I went back to my new hotel for a little while, filmed a couple videos, and then headed on over to the Investors Podcast Network meetup that they were having that Sunday night, pretty close to my hotel. So I walked on over, and once again, I got to meet a bunch of new people, many of whom had seen punch card or had seen my content or both. But overall, it was yet another positive event. I was there for a few hours before the restaurant had to close, so everyone had to leave. And that was Sunday. On Monday morning, I filmed a bit more content before I had to check out of the hotel, and then I went and got lunch with James, who I had met the day before, who was a loyal follower of punch card investing. But not long after that, I had to head to the airport and didn't have any problems getting back to Houston, and my wife graciously picked me up and we went and got some dinner. All told, it was a really great weekend. I got to meet so many new people from all sorts of different backgrounds, but everyone kind of shared that same sort of long-term perspective, trying to get better, trying to educate yourself, trying to remain patient, but still trying to take decisive action when you thought you had the right thing going. So there were a lot of shared beliefs in that respect, but otherwise the experiences that everyone had varied pretty widely. The strategies people used, the perspectives they had on things well beyond investing as well. A lot of the conversations weren't really about investing, but were about philosophies and how you were thinking through certain problems. And I got to make some deeper connections as well with people who maybe I had been talking to before the event and had never met in person, but got to meet them for this weekend. And that alone made it a very good trip. But I'm already very much looking forward to next year's event. And I definitely want to do another punch card investing meetup and trying to improve on this year's and make it even better next year, have more people come, maybe put on some more formal events rather than just an informal meetup. Whatever actually ends up happening, I think it's a very valuable trip and I want to make it again. So that was my Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting weekend. And next year I'd love to get out on Thursday as well, since there are so many events on Thursday that I ended up missing because I didn't come until Friday. So I want to try and take advantage of that as well. But I guess I'll cross that bridge when I get there. So that was my trip for the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting this year. Thanks to everyone who came by and said hi at the various events that I was at. I appreciate all of you for watching my content and punch card investing and everything that I'm doing on YouTube. And I look forward to meeting many more of you in the future. And as always, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. Until next time.